Hey guys, it's Dan from the Videos team. This video I'm going to talk about lower thirds, in particular what they are and how to use them. Now, some really good software out there on the internet, in particular one called Videos. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. They're pretty damn good and they make some really good content. I'm pretty sure their creative director, yeah, he's a really good looking chap. Anyway, Videos make some really sick lower thirds. So, what are lower thirds? They're designed as ways to provide extra information about maybe your subject, the host, someone who's being interviewed, location. Just adds a little bit more information, makes it a bit more professional. Tom, add like a professional looking title, make me look professional. Tom, look, there goes my notes. You know, it's too cold. I thought I'd make this video a bit more interesting. Get out in the nature. In the nature? It's not worked. Anyway, if you don't have a background in videos or video work, you might not know what a lower third is, but you will have definitely seen a lower third, sometimes referred to as L3s. I've never referred to a lower third as an L3, but some people do. They're basically either plain text or text-based animations. In a most basic form, just standard text. Some example here. And obviously, as you would expect, they're in the lower third of the video. You're most likely going to see a lower third on an interview, news report, documentary, sporting event, and live broadcasts, where they'll be used to tell you a range of things, such as someone's name, their title, occupation, dates, times, location. You get the idea. I'm very aware that I'm just walking up and down a dirty, muddy field somewhere, and the sun is so shiny. I do not have an ND filter, so apologies if everything is blown out, and I'm just walking backwards and forwards. So before we start editing your lower thirds into your videos, there's a few things that you're going to need to consider. The first one to consider is style. As you can see, I got plenty of that. So a shapeless lower third consists just of text. Now with this one, you're going to have to get your font right, because you won't be relying on a cool, slick, colored box or shape, for example. And you definitely don't want your text to be hard to read. So simple lower thirds incorporate shapes. These look a little bit more stylized and professional and eye-catching, kind of like this sun. By the way, it's freezing. But the only reason I'm walking up here is because I can see some sheep, and maybe I can give one of those a lower third. Might look funny. We could call him Barney. Hey. No, okay. So stylized lower thirds often have customized background, text, colors, and more likely going to be animated. Kind of like the stuff you're going to see on videos. One of the most important things you're going to need to consider with your lower thirds is that it's on brand. I'm out of breath. God, you wouldn't have thought I'd go to the gym. So yeah, one of the most important things you're going to have to consider with your lower thirds is that it's in your brand guidelines, or it's in the style of your brand, and it's not going to look weird, disassociated, kind of like I am in my white plimsolls in a location like this. All right, the next thing to consider is color. So you need to make sure you're incorporating your brand colors into your lower thirds. As you can see on this example, Tom, blue, green, blam, lower third, brand colors. So saying that, you don't want to incorporate a color that's going to clash with your video. So for example, something that's like really nasty pink wouldn't work well here. Or for example, something that's going to blend in and you're not going to see. So white text, you're not going to see that too well. So you need to make sure it's got a decent contrast, isn't going to clash with your colors, and isn't going to blend into your background. Simples. The sheep are getting closer. Barney's waiting. I bet he's going to run off a little. Next one is typography. And the most important thing with typography is being consistent. Unlike this cloud and my lighting. And when I mean consistent, I mean try and keep it on point with your brand. If you can't be consistent with your brand guidelines, you're not going to go wrong with a clear, legible font. Just make sure it's consistent throughout your video. For example, you're not going to want a stylized scripty looking font here, and then a second later, big old font here. Okay, next one is size. Size does matter, but not in the way you think. You need to make sure your lower third is big enough for people to read, but not so big that it distracts from the rest of the video. So what I'm saying is keep it visible, but subtle. Don't boast about your lower third size. Barney, Barney, come on, Barney. Next one is positioning. Typically lower third, as you would expect, gonna be in the lower third, but it doesn't always have to be. You can position it in other places. You don't really want it to cover your subject. You don't want it to be distracting, in other words. Next one is duration. And this one really depends on how much text you've got going on your lower third. But general rule of thumb, shorter the better. You don't want people being distracted by having to read a ton of text when what they really want to see is old Barney over there. Okay, so animated lower thirds. This one's pretty much our bread and butter here at Videos, and is a great way to keep your viewers a bit more engaged, add a bit more dynamicness. Getting your information across on your lower thirds in a more dynamic way. Nailed it. Here are a few examples. Where you going? Barney? Barney, I'm trying to make a video. Dude. Next one. Speech bubbles. These are great for like fiction, comedy, jokey kind of videos. Normally conveying a character's thoughts. They're pretty shit, I'm going to be honest. All right, a couple of extra tips for you guys, because that's just how we do. Also, someone follow me, so I want to wrap this video up pretty sharpish. Lower thirds are a great way to get a lot more information across in a quicker way. Does that sound right? Basically, you can cover a lot more stuff with less screen time, is what I'm saying. Subscribe reminders, or call outs, or subscribe buttons and likes. Tom, give Barney a few subscribe likes. So yeah, they're really popular because they're a great call to action. So like, subscribe, comment, here's my channel, here's my handle. Remember to do that, hit the bell icon. Another way to use a lower third is to use it as a way to support facts and data and stats and stuff. So if you're talking about how many steps I've done walking up this hill, you can see here. Or how many pairs of shoes I've gone through. Here. How many sheep I've seen. Here. And how many times I've almost fallen on my ass. Tally that up, Tom. Oh crap, they're so dirty. Another way to use lower thirds is to, Another way to use lower thirds is credit people. Maybe you're using some stock footage or copyright stuff, music, and you give credit where credit's due. Okay, next one, display cost information, prices, offers. You know, if you're selling some sheep shearing clippers, let people know how much they cost. Pretty simple, that one, isn't it? So, to conclude, first of all, I hope you like this video. It is a very short piece, but when it comes to lower third, it's kind of a nothing ventured, nothing gained mentality. You know, be creative, kind of think outside the lower third box. And just maybe have a good think about how lower thirds can impact your video in a positive way. That's all, thank you, goodbye.
Videos make hot, customizable logo animations, lower thirds, and alpha overlays. It's all done online, in the cloud, and in just a few clicks. You don't have to spend a ton of time looking at YouTube videos on how to use After Effects, or spend knows how much money paying a professional to do it. You just upload your image or your logo, change some colors, input your text, and you can even change audio tracks. Then you just click render and wait for the good stuff. Why the fuck would you not want to save time and money making your videos look more professional, more engaging, and ultimately getting more money from your punters?